You know, it's rather curious how fascinated we are with tomorrow. It's always just over the horizon, shimmering like a mirage, promising clarity, redemption, perhaps even a new world altogether. And we run toward it, breathless, hopeful, only to discover, when we finally arrive, that it's today again. Tomorrow never actually comes, you see. It's a story we tell ourselves so that the present doesn't feel quite so final. The human being is an extraordinary storyteller. We live inside fictions of progress, just one more step, just one more year. Once I've fixed this, then I'll be free. And so life becomes a rehearsal for a scene that never begins. We imagine there's a better version of ourselves waiting just a little further down the road. But every road bends back here, to this moment, to this breath, to this beating heart. You see, the mind is rather clever. It doesn't want to die, and so it invents time. Time is the mind's way of keeping itself busy, of pretending that there's something to reach, some summit of understanding, some distant paradise where everything finally fits. And we call this the future. But the future is only a thought. And every thought, no matter how grand, occurs now. Even your dreams of tomorrow are made of this very moment. We have been trained to worship progress as if life were a mountain to climb, as if the meaning of existence were hidden somewhere near the top. But what if there is no top? What if life is more like a dance than a journey? In a dance, you don't move to get somewhere, you move because moving is the point. You don't dance the waltz to arrive at the far side of the room. You dance to feel the rhythm, to be the rhythm. And yet, we keep postponing life. We say, after the war ends, after I find the right person, after 2028, then I'll finally begin to live. But the secret is that after never arrives. There is only now, endlessly unfolding like a flower that never stops blooming. The miracle of life isn't waiting for you in some other season. It's happening precisely here, in the simple, unremarkable miracle of awareness. The seduction of tomorrow is that it always whispers, not yet. It promises that you will finally be complete when this or that changes, when the world becomes enlightened, when humanity evolves, when your mind stops wandering. But what if the whole game of becoming is the very thing that keeps you from being? What if there was never anything to become? What if this very confusion, this longing, this heartbeat is already the enlightenment you've been chasing through calendars and prophecies? You see, the mind loves distance. It loves the idea of someday, because someday keeps the story going. But life doesn't exist in stories. It exists only as this, the utterly inescapable present. You cannot run from it, because wherever you run, it's already there, waiting, smiling, saying, ah, you, again. And so we might ask, what would happen if you stopped running toward tomorrow? Would the world end? Would you vanish? No. You'd simply awaken to what has been here all along, the stillness underneath the striving, the peace underneath the panic, the silence between all your sentences. That silence is not the absence of life, it is life. The moment you stop trying to make sense of the next moment, you discover that this one has been making sense all by itself. So, the seduction of tomorrow is really the avoidance of today. And the great irony is that everything you seek in tomorrow, peace, meaning, clarity, is quietly waiting for you in this eternal now, disguised as the ordinary. The taste of tea, the breath entering your lungs, the sound of a distant bird, these are not trivial things. They are the universe in disguise. And once you notice that, you realize there's nowhere to get to. You've already arrived. It's rather amusing, isn't it? How we humans cannot resist giving the infinite a schedule. We speak of 2028, as if the universe were keeping an appointment book, as if God himself had penciled in awakening, Tuesday, January 4th. Every few years, we choose a new number, a new prophecy, a new date to hang our hopes upon. Once it was 2012, now it's 2028, and perhaps soon it will be something else entirely. We call it the Age of Aquarius, or the Golden Era, or the Ascension of Humanity. Beautiful words, all of them, but what they really reveal is our inability to live without expectation. We are addicted to the idea that salvation is coming later. It's a marvelous trick the mind plays on itself. For if enlightenment is safely in the future, then we need not face the terror of realizing it's already here and that there's nothing we can do about it. You see, when people say something big is coming, what they really mean is something big must come, otherwise all my suffering has been for nothing. We want the heavens to open, the vibrations to rise, the world to reset anything to make the mess of the present feel meaningful. And so we create mythic deadlines. We make spirituality sound like a business project. Target completion date 2028. But the universe is not a business. It has no goals, no KPI, no quarterly reports. It has only the eternal play of itself. Now, I'm not saying that prophecy is useless, not at all. Every prophecy is a poem written by a frightened mind yearning for order. It tells us more about our state of consciousness than about the state of the cosmos. For what we call prediction is really projection. When we cannot bear the uncertainty of the present, we escape into visions of the future, some radiant, some terrifying, but both equally unreal. You see, the future is a marvelous place to hide. It's distant enough to be safe and close enough to feel important. It's the perfect illusion of control. If the world is ending, we can prepare. If the new age is dawning, we can strive to be ready. Either way, we feel busy, significant, part of a story. And that sense of purpose, however imaginary, soothes the restless heart. But the cosmos doesn't know about your calendar. It doesn't tick or talk. It pulses. It doesn't count years. It breathes eternities. And every breath you take is that eternity expressing itself as you. The great shift isn't coming, it's happening. In every inhalation, every heartbeat, every moment of laughter or grief. We've built entire spiritual industries around, waiting for disclosure, for ascension, for the event, for liberation. But liberation was never postponed. It's simply ignored, like the sound of your own heartbeat when you're busy listening to everyone else's. The awakened don't prepare for 2028 because they've already realized that 2028 will arrive as now. And when it does, most people will still be saying, just wait. The real change comes in 2032. You see the pattern, don't you? Each prophecy defers the present. Each coming revelation is a polite way of saying, not yet. But the divine doesn't live in not yet. It lives in already. It lives in this breath, this silence, this single, eternal instant that never began and will never end. So when you hear the big shift is coming, smile gently and ask, where else could it come but here? When someone insists that enlightenment is scheduled for a future date, invite them to look at their hands, to feel their pulse, to notice the aliveness that was never on hold. Because this very awareness, reading these words, hearing this voice, is the shift. It's always been the shift. The myth of 2028, like all myths, serves a beautiful function. It mirrors our longing for meaning. But when we see through it, when we stop turning prophecy into postponement, something remarkable happens. The sacred ceases to be an event and becomes the atmosphere. The new age stops being a date and starts being this moment. And then, at last, you stop waiting for life to begin because you realize it already has. And you were simply too busy counting the years to notice. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How easily fear dresses itself in sacred clothing. We imagine that the hunger for prophecy is noble, that it springs from spiritual intuition, a yearning to see the truth. But in most cases, it's only the same old fear wearing a new robe. The panic of not knowing becomes the prophecy of what's to come. You see, the human mind hates uncertainty more than it hates suffering. We would rather believe in the certainty of doom than face the wonder of not knowing. That's why bad news spreads faster than peace, because fear gives us the illusion of control. If we can name the danger, if we can chart it on a calendar, then at least it's ours. We have tamed the chaos by predicting its arrival. When the world feels unstable, the mind begins to write scripts. It conjures patterns from the noise, dates, numbers, omens, cosmic cycles. All of it a grand attempt to turn mystery into math. But existence doesn't care for our equations. The universe isn't a problem to be solved. It's a dance to be joined. And the dancer never knows the next step until it happens. It's important to understand that prophecy, in its psychological essence, is comfort. It gives the frightened child within us a bedtime story. Even if that story is about the end of the world, at least it has a plot. And people would rather die inside a story than live in a question mark. That's the power of panic. It feels purposeful. You can organize your life around fear. It gives you tasks, missions, enemies, allies, timelines. It gives meaning to chaos, even if the meaning is misery. But the irony, the great cosmic joke, is that the more we try to predict the future, the more we reveal our refusal to live in the present. Because the future is made of fear and fantasy, and the present is made of truth. And truth has no agenda. It doesn't tell you what's next, it simply is. So, when people speak with trembling voices about what's coming, some catastrophe, some collapse, some glorious awakening, they are really confessing that they feel powerless in the now. The future becomes the theater where they can project the drama of control. And prophecy becomes their way of pretending that uncertainty has a script. But listen closely. The real fear isn't of disaster. It's of freedom. For if nothing is predetermined, if no one knows what will happen, then life is infinitely open, and openness terrifies the ego. The ego wants fences, borders, deadlines. It wants to know where it stands, even if where it stands is falling apart. To not know is to die before you die, and that's precisely what awakening requires. Alan Watts often reminded us that insecurity is the very nature of existence. To be alive is to be uncertain. Security is a story we whisper to ourselves while walking on a bridge that's constantly rebuilding itself underfoot. You can't stand still on a living bridge. And so, every attempt to pin life down, to predict it, to secure it, is an act of gentle violence against reality. The spiritually immature mind wants revelation without surrender. It wants to see the divine but not be dissolved by it. It wants to hear God's plan but still keep its own. So it invents prophecies, safe, symbolic glimpses of destiny that preserve the illusion of personal importance. But the divine has no plan because it is the plan. It unfolds as you, as me, as every fleeting moment that cannot be repeated. And this is why true awakening often begins with the collapse of belief in the future. Not because the future is bad, but because it's unreal. It exists only as imagination, a shadow cast by fear and hope. To awaken is to stop living in shadows, to stand naked in the bright uncertainty of the present. And yes, that nakedness feels like panic at first. But if you stay with it, if you breathe into it, the panic softens into peace. Because what you feared was never the unknown, it was your resistance to it. So, the next time you hear of some grand prediction, economic, spiritual, cosmic, pause for a moment. Notice the tingle of excitement or dread that arises, and recognize it for what it is: the mind's desperate attempt to escape the vast, unscripted now. Then smile, because the joke's on the mind. You were never meant to know what's coming. You were meant to be what's coming. There's something profoundly comical about how seriously we take time. We measure it, worship it, chase it, fear it, all the while never noticing that no one has ever actually seen it. We say time passes as if it were a river flowing past our little island of existence. But look carefully. Can you find this thing called time? Have you ever held it, touched it, heard it whisper? It's not the river that's moving. You see, it's the boat of the mind. Time is an extraordinary invention. It allows us to remember where we've been and imagine where we might go. It lets us build bridges, plant gardens, write history books. It's a most useful illusion. But the tragedy begins when we mistake the illusion for reality. We forget that clocks were built to serve us and begin to serve them instead. We don't just have schedules anymore. We are schedules. The calendar doesn't record our days, it creates them. You see, the present moment has never been in time. It's the stage upon which time performs. The now is not a dot on a line between past and future, it's the canvas upon which the whole painting appears. Everything that ever happened, happens, or will happen, happens now. The past is a memory occurring now. The future is a thought occurring now. And yet, how we scramble, forever leaning forward, tilting towards some imaginary then, like a runner who never stops falling. We say, I'm running out of time, as if time were fuel. But what's really running out is the belief that you are separate from the flow. For the truth is, you are the flow. You are the unfolding of existence pretending to be late for an appointment. Isn't that marvelous? The universe has nowhere to go, but it's always rushing there anyway. And you, dear listener, are that rush, that playful current of awareness forever arriving where it already is. The great cosmic joke, you see, is that the future never comes. It only ever comes as now. And when it does, we rename it, package it, and chase it again. We say, here it is, but it's not quite what I meant. Maybe tomorrow. And so humanity lives in perpetual rehearsal, endlessly practicing for a play that has already begun. We call it planning. But most plans are just beautifully organized procrastination from being alive. Alan Watts used to say that we suffer from a chronic illusion, the illusion that the present is a thin edge between two vast eternities, the past and the future. But in reality, it's the other way round. Past and future are wisps of imagination floating in the eternal vastness of the present. The present isn't small, it's infinite. It contains everything you've ever loved, feared, or dreamed. It's the womb of all worlds, the silent background that never began and never ends. So when you say, I wish I could go back, or I can't wait until, notice that both are just movements of thought within the same timeless field. You cannot step out of it. Even when you're thinking about next year, you're thinking now. Even when you remember your childhood, that remembering is happening now. You've never been anywhere else. You've never lived in any other moment. All that's changed is the scenery of your imagination. Time gives the illusion of progress, and progress gives the illusion of control. But life isn't a line to be followed, it's a rhythm to be felt. It's not about getting somewhere, it's about being somewhere completely. You cannot dance to a rhythm if you're listening for the final beat. You dance by surrendering to the beat that's already here. And so the joke of time is this. You are forever arriving, and you have never left. You are both the traveler and the destination. The clock is just your heartbeat disguised as a ticking sound. When you truly hear that, not with your ears, but with your being, the whole chase collapses into laughter, because you realize there was nothing to chase. There never was. When you stop measuring life, you begin to feel it. And when you feel it, you discover that eternity was never in the distant heavens. It was hiding in your breath, between the inhale and the exhale. Right there, in the simplest place, and there it has always been, smiling quietly, waiting for you to stop counting long enough to notice. It's a funny thing, isn't it? How people secretly enjoy their anxiety. We rarely admit it, of course. We complain about it, medicate it, meditate on it, but we cling to it as though it were an old friend who always keeps the conversation going. Because when we worry, we feel alive. We feel involved. Anxiety gives us something to do when there's nothing to do. You see, the mind is a restless little monkey. If it's not worrying about survival, it worries about meaning. And if it can't find a real threat, it will happily invent one. So, humanity has turned worrying into an art form. We worry about the future of civilization, the economy, the climate, the soul, the self, the afterlife, endless sequels to the same old movie. And we pretend this panic is wisdom. We call it being informed. But what it really is entertainment. Have you noticed how people gather around bad news the way moths gather around a flame? We scroll through headlines of disaster, watch predictions of collapse, read about wars and storms and shortages, and we say, oh, how dreadful. Yet we cannot look away, because deep down, we love the thrill of uncertainty, the drama of danger safely observed from a distance. It's exciting. It gives texture to an otherwise ordinary afternoon. Anxiety is not merely a disease. It's a habit of mind, a sort of spiritual addiction. We confuse stimulation with aliveness. The heart races, the adrenaline flows, and we mistake that chemical buzz for meaning. So we cling to fear the way a gambler clings to risk. We'd rather be terrified than bored. Alan Watts once said that people get attached to their problems the way they get attached to their identities. Without their worries, they wouldn't know who they are. Imagine waking up one morning with absolutely nothing to worry about. Most people wouldn't find that peaceful. They'd find it terrifying. What will I do, they'd ask, if there's nothing to fix? And so the mind invents new projects, global conspiracies, unseen enemies, spiritual tests, planetary shifts, apocalyptic prophecies, anything to keep the story going. This is the entertainment of anxiety. It fills the silence, gives us talking points, turns existence into a soap opera starring me versus the universe. And yet, when you really look at it, anxiety is just the refusal to trust what is. It's an argument with the present moment. It says, I know better than life how life should be. But life, in its gentle mischief, keeps replying. Do you, though? The ego thrives on friction. Without resistance, it fades. So anxiety becomes the fuel of ego, the constant hum that assures you the self is still doing something. It's the mind's way of keeping itself alive. I worry, therefore I am. But awareness, true, effortless awareness, doesn't need to worry. It doesn't need to control, predict, or justify. It simply watches as clouds of thought drift through the vast, open sky of being. Now, you might say, but Alan, if we don't worry, won't the world fall apart? To which I would answer, has it ever stayed together because you worried about it? Your worry didn't stop the sun from rising, or the seasons from turning, or your body from breathing. Life has been doing perfectly well long before your concern appeared, and it will continue long after it fades. So what happens when you stop entertaining yourself with fear? At first, there's silence, an awkward, unsettling stillness. The show has ended, and the stage is empty. But wait a while, and you begin to notice something deeper, a hum beneath the hum, a peace that was always there but drowned out by the noise. You realize that nothing is missing, nothing is waiting, nothing is wrong. The silence you once feared is not emptiness, it's fullness. It's life before the commentary. The world doesn't need your panic, it needs your presence. And when you finally tire of anxiety's endless drama, you will see that peace was never the prize at the end of the struggle. It was the screen upon which the whole movie was playing. So, the entertainment of anxiety is the grandest show in town. But once you've seen through it, you no longer buy a ticket. You simply smile at the marquee that says "Coming soon, the end of everything," and stroll peacefully past it into the quiet miracle of now. There's something rather delightful about our fascination with the end of the world. Every generation is quite convinced that it will be the last. You can find prophecies in every culture, every religion, every century, and each time the story is the same. Ah, yes, but this time it's real. The stars are aligning. The signs are clear. The timeline is ticking, and people lean forward in delicious anticipation as though watching the final act of a very long play. Why do we do this? Why are we so enchanted by the thought of total collapse? Well, you see, buried deep within every apocalypse is a secret wish, not for destruction, but for renewal. We dream of endings because we crave beginnings. The fantasy of catastrophe is simply the longing for a clean slate. It's the collective desire to wipe the blackboard of history and start again. When the old world feels heavy and meaningless, we imagine it must burn before it can be reborn. We project our inner exhaustion onto the heavens and call it prophecy. But the truth is simpler and far more intimate. The world we want to end is not the physical world of trees and oceans, but the psychological world we've built around ourselves, the world of me. When you say everything's falling apart, what's really collapsing is the story of who you thought you were. Alan Watts used to call this the divine comedy of doom, because the end of the world has already happened 1,000 times. It happened when you lost your first love, when your beliefs crumbled, when the life you planned dissolved into something unrecognizable. Each time, you thought it was the end, and each time, life went on, only lighter, freer, more spacious than before. The apocalypse is not an event, it's an awakening. The universe doesn't end, it sheds its skin. You see, catastrophe is a mirror. It shows us the impermanence we spend our lives trying to ignore. Every death, every disaster, every disappointment whispers the same secret. You were never in control. Is we. And that realization, though terrifying to the ego, is liberation to the soul. Because once you stop insisting that life follow your script, you are free to enjoy the improvisation. We often think awakening will make everything serene and perfect, but it rarely begins that way. First, it feels like chaos, because to wake up, the dream must crack. And from inside the dream, cracking feels like catastrophe. But from the view of consciousness itself, it's simply the dreamer stirring, realizing, none of this was ever truly happening. The flood, the fire, the collapse, they're all metaphors for the same inner shift. The moment when the self you've been protecting dissolves and something vast and timeless steps forward. And when that happens, the world doesn't end, it just loses its seriousness. The game goes on. But now you see it for what it is, a game, a play, a divine masquerade. That's why prophets always seem to appear in times of crisis, because crisis is the birthplace of clarity. When the structures of meaning start to wobble, the light shines through the cracks. The human race is always on the brink of disaster, because disaster is the brink of awakening. It's the point where the old patterns finally grow too small to contain the growing consciousness within them. But you see, most people misunderstand this. They take the mirror literally. They think the world outside must perish for the soul inside to awaken. So they panic, build bunkers, write blogs, form cults, anything to prepare for the big one. But the big one already happened. It's happening right now, in you. Each time a belief dies and a deeper seeing takes its place. The end of the world is not a cosmic explosion, it's a quiet realization. It's the moment you stop taking your reflection for yourself. The moment you look into the mirror of catastrophe and finally recognize your own face. Not the face of the frightened self trying to survive, but the face of eternity smiling at its own impermanence. And once you've seen that, You no longer fear the end. You welcome it because you understand that every ending is simply life changing its costume. The form dies, but the formless laughs. The play ends, and the curtain rises again. So when you hear someone say, "The world is ending," smile and answer, "Wonderful. It always is." Because the end of the world is not the death of life, it's the death of the lie that life needed to be controlled. It's the final punchline in the cosmic joke, that nothing real can ever be destroyed, and nothing unreal ever truly existed. You know, it's quite extraordinary. Everyone talks about seeking revelation, as though the divine truth were hiding behind the curtains of tomorrow, waiting for the right dramatic moment to step on stage. But the truth has never hidden from you. It's been standing here all along, smiling patiently while you search the heavens. We have this odd habit of assuming that the sacred must come with trumpets and thunder, that awakening must be accompanied by lightning bolts, voices, visions, or some mystical spectacle. But what if revelation is much simpler than that? What if it's nothing more exotic than the sound of the rain against your window, the movement of breath in your chest, the hum of existence itself? You see, the mind has been trained to believe that reality is always somewhere else, later, higher, better. So we chase after the next technique, the next retreat, the next alignment of planets. We keep hoping that the great unveiling will finally happen then. But the great unveiling can only happen now, because now is the only place where life ever happens. The past is memory, the future imagination, and both are clouds drifting across the infinite blue of the present. But you, dear friend, are the sky itself. Alan Watts used to say that we are forever looking for God in a mirror that we ourselves are holding. The revelation is not a new event. It's the sudden recognition of what's always been true. When you finally stop waiting for life to start, you realize it already has. When you stop seeking meaning, you discover that meaning was never missing, it was simply obscured by the search. Think of a fish in the ocean, frantically looking for water. That's humanity, seeking enlightenment. We search for the divine, the way the eye searches for sight, but the eye can't see itself. And that's the beauty of it. You are not a seeker standing apart from truth, you are truth peering out through the eyes of a seeker. Every moment is the burning bush. Every sound, the voice of God. Every breath, the Big Bang, still unfolding. But we miss it because we keep expecting revelation to feel special. We want fireworks, not stillness. We want voices from heaven, not the quiet whisper of presence. And yet, it is precisely in that quiet that the revelation happens, not as a message delivered, but as the dissolving of the one who needed a message at all. You see, the universe doesn't reveal itself to you, it reveals itself as you. That's the real revelation. The flower doesn't bloom to impress you, it blooms because blooming is what it is. And your awakening is not something that happens to a person, it's what happens when the illusion of a separate person fades and life recognizes itself in its own reflection. So the revelation isn't an event to wait for, it's a perception to relax into. It happens each time you stop arguing with what is, each time you let go of the need for something more, something different, something else. When you finally allow the present moment to be what it is, you realize it was never ordinary, it was sacred all along. The holiness of now is so obvious, so immediate, that the mind overlooks it completely. We're so busy rehearsing the future that we forget to notice that existence is already performing the masterpiece. This is why the mystics laugh. They laugh not because they've discovered a secret, but because they realize there never was one. They laugh because the treasure they sought through lifetimes of striving was sitting quietly in their lap the whole time. They laugh because the veil they were trying to tear away was made of their own imagination. So, when you hear talk of a great awakening coming, remember, awakening is not a storm to arrive, it's a fog lifting from your own eyes. The light was always here. It didn't need to come, it only needed to be noticed. The revelation is not waiting in the sky, it's blooming in the silence behind your thoughts, in the space between your worries, in the breath that reads these words. And when you finally see that, when you really see it not as an idea, but as a living truth, something very beautiful happens. The whole frantic search ends. You stop running toward the horizon because you realize you are the horizon. You stop chasing revelation because you recognize that revelation is the very act of being conscious. And in that recognition, all of time collapses into a single, radiant instant, the eternal now. You see, the present has never been waiting for you. It's you who has been waiting to remember the present. And the moment you do, you'll discover that paradise was never lost. It was simply overlooked in the noise of becoming. Now is not the stepping stone to something greater, it is the garden itself, fully in bloom. It's quite an odd thing, isn't it? How we always think we must prepare for life. We prepare for happiness. We prepare for peace. We prepare for enlightenment. As if existence were some grand performance, and we're still backstage, adjusting our costumes, waiting for the curtain to rise. But the curtain has been up the whole time, and the play has already begun. You are not rehearsing, you are performing. And the audience, my friend, is none other than yourself. From childhood, we are taught that the good things come later. Work now, rest later. Suffer now, rejoice later. Prepare now, awaken later. And so we spend our lives perpetually on the brink of living, perpetually almost ready, perpetually waiting for the right moment to begin. But there is no later. There never was. All readiness is already here, you see. The idea of preparation is just another clever disguise of the ego. The ego says, yes, I will surrender once I've perfected myself. I will awaken once I've cleansed all my karma. I will love once I'm no longer afraid. And on it goes, forever pushing truth a few steps ahead, safely out of reach. The ego loves preparation because preparation postpones the disappearance of the ego. But what could you possibly prepare for? How can you get ready to be what you already are? It's like a wave rehearsing how to be the ocean. It doesn't need practice, it only needs to stop pretending. The moment the wave remembers it was never separate, it realizes that it has always been the sea. Alan Watts used to say that the only preparation for meditation is to sit down and begin, because the instant you start, it's already happening. You don't learn how to be here, you discover that you've never been anywhere else. So long as you believe you must prepare for awakening, you'll continue postponing it. You'll trade this vivid moment for the promise of a better one, like someone saving their best wine for a dinner that never comes. Consider this. Every flower blooms exactly when it blooms. It doesn't consult a calendar. It doesn't take a course on photosynthesis. It simply opens, because opening is what it is. The sunlight doesn't need practice shining, and the wind doesn't need lessons in blowing. They are not preparing to be themselves, they are themselves. And so are you. The myth of preparation comes from the deep fear of letting go, because to stop preparing is to admit that the story of me getting somewhere is finished. And we are terrified of that ending. We would rather remain eternal students of enlightenment than surrender to being enlightened. We'd rather keep the quest than risk losing the questioner. So we keep polishing the mirror, never daring to look directly into it. But there comes a moment, a quiet, sacred weariness, when you simply stop. You stop chasing readiness, stop organizing your consciousness, stop trying to get it right, and in that stopping, something miraculous happens. You realize you were never unready. You realize that existence has been doing the living all along while you were busy preparing for it. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just happens. Every breath, every heartbeat, every sunrise is happening without your permission. And when you finally see that, a great burden lifts. You can drop the checklist of spiritual achievements. You can drop the anxiety of not being enough, because you were never incomplete, only convinced that you were. The truth is embarrassingly simple. You cannot prepare for now, you can only be now. You cannot prepare for love. You can only love. You cannot prepare for death. You can only die when the time comes. And until then, live fully. Preparation is a form of hesitation, and hesitation is a polite way of saying no to life. So stop hesitating. Life doesn't ask you to be ready, it invites you to be real. You see, enlightenment isn't a ceremony that begins after years of purification. It's what happens when you realize there's nothing to purify. It's the laughter that comes when you see that the whole journey of self-improvement was a dance around a still point that never moved. You were the still point all along. So, if you've been waiting for a sign that it's time to wake up, this is it. Because this moment, the one you are in right now, is exactly what every sacred text, every teacher, every prophecy has been pointing to. It was never about the future. It was always about this. The myth of preparation ends the moment you stop preparing to live and start noticing that you are already alive. And when you do, you'll discover the sweetest paradox of all. The only true preparation for awakening was to realize that you never needed any. It's a rather peculiar habit we have, imagining that the universe is in trouble and we must rush to its rescue. We like to think of ourselves as heroes in a divine drama, gallantly defending existence from itself. But have you noticed that the universe has been going on quite successfully without your advice? For billions of years it's been spinning stars, blooming flowers, building mountains, and dissolving them again, and it's done all this without the faintest trace of panic. And yet, here we are, fretting about whether we're doing enough to save the planet, the species, the soul, or even God. It's an extraordinary arrogance. Really, though born of good intentions, we forget that the very hands wringing themselves over the fate of the world are the world. The idea of saving the universe presumes that you stand outside of it, like a mechanic repairing a machine. But you are not the mechanic. You are the machinery itself, humming and clanking in perfect rhythm with all the other gears. You see, this impulse to save comes from the same illusion that drives all our striving, the illusion of separateness. We think of ourselves as visitors in a strange land, here to make it better, cleaner, more spiritual. But the earth is not your guest house. It's your body. The rivers are your blood, the trees your lungs, the wind your breath. You don't have to save what you already are. Alan Watts used to say that trying to improve the world by sheer moral will is like trying to smooth out the surface of water with an iron. Every stroke just makes more ripples. You see, the world is already balanced perfectly, delicately, and dynamically. The storms, the extinctions, the deaths, the births, they are all movements of a single living process, each one essential to the dance. To say that one part of the dance is wrong is to say that the left foot is an error when you're stepping right. Now, that doesn't mean we should do nothing. It doesn't mean we shrug and say, well, the cosmos will handle it. It means we act without illusion. We care because caring is our nature, not because we're fixing a mistake. The trees don't grow to purify the air. They grow because growing is what they are. Likewise, compassion doesn't need justification. It's the fragrance of understanding. Once you see that, you act with effortless sincerity, no guilt, no pride, just harmony. The trouble begins when we believe that the world must be redeemed, that life has gone wrong and needs correcting. But tell me, what is wrong with a thunderstorm? What is wrong with decay, or chaos, or death? Only a mind addicted to permanence would call them errors. Life has never been interested in permanence. It thrives on transformation. What you call destruction is simply creation seen from the wrong angle. Imagine for a moment that the universe is a grand symphony. You, of course, are one of its notes. Now, if a single note decided that the entire melody was off key and set out to fix the symphony, it would miss the point entirely. The music doesn't need a hero, it needs harmony. And harmony happens not through control, but through participation. When you play your note fully, honestly, without grasping or shrinking, the whole song finds balance through you. You see, the need to save the world is often the last refuge of the ego. When the ego tires of chasing personal success, it seeks a nobler mission to become the savior of all. But it's the same game, just in grander disguise. The self still wants to be the center, even if the story now calls it service. True service has no savior in it, because it recognizes that there's nothing to rescue. There is only the joy of being part of the eternal, unfolding the wave, playing its part in the tide. And when you see this, when you truly feel it, something relaxes deep within you. The strain of righteousness dissolves. You stop clutching at moral checklists and start breathing again. You realize that the cosmos is not broken, it's blooming. And you are one of its blossoms, fragile and perfect in your impermanence. So you can still plant trees, feed the hungry, protect the vulnerable, but now you do it as a celebration, not a rescue. You do it because it's natural, not because it's necessary. You no longer fight the current, you flow with it. And that flow, that effortless compassion, is the universe saving itself, not through effort, but through awareness. The truth is simple and scandalous. The universe doesn't need saving because it was never lost. It doesn't need fixing because it never broke. It doesn't need meaning because it is meaning. And when you finally see that, you stop playing God and start dancing with God. You stop managing existence and start marveling at it. And perhaps for the first time, you can breathe, laugh, and say with genuine relief, the universe is doing just fine and so am I. It's rather amusing, isn't it, how human beings spend their lives searching for the extraordinary, while the extraordinary has been hiding in the ordinary all along. We climb mountains, cross deserts, sit at the feet of gurus, hoping for some grand moment of illumination, and all the while, the universe whispers from the steam rising off our morning tea, from the rhythm of footsteps on a quiet street, from the breeze that brushes the cheek. But we miss it because we've been trained to believe that the divine must be spectacular. We imagine that awakening should strike like lightning, with trumpets and visions and cosmic applause. But enlightenment is not an explosion, it's a sigh. It's the quiet recognition that nothing was ever missing. You see, the sacred doesn't live in the mountaintop monastery or the distant future. It lives in the dishes, the laughter, the heartbreak, and the hum of traffic outside your window. When you stop trying to make life spiritual, you realize it already is. Everything is a manifestation of the same mystery. The dirt under your fingernails, the song of a bird, the flicker of thought that passes through your mind, each one is the universe speaking itself in a different accent. There's no hierarchy here. The so-called mundane and the so-called divine are two sides of one coin, flipping forever in the sunlight of consciousness. Alan Watts often said that the purpose of life is simply to be alive completely, fully, without reservation. And yet, how rarely we do that. We treat living as a task to be managed, a problem to be solved, a checklist to be completed. We rush through our days as though there's some final test waiting at the end. But there is no test, there is only the dance. And the dance is happening right now, in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the sparkle of light, reflecting off the cup beside you. The sacred ordinary is what you discover when the search collapses. When you no longer divide life into sacred and profane, success and failure, spiritual and worldly. It's what remains when all comparisons fall away. In that simplicity, even the most trivial act becomes luminous. You tie your shoelaces, and the universe ties them with you. You wash an apple, and God's fingerprints glisten on the skin. You smile at a stranger, and eternity smiles back. But here's the catch. The moment you try to see the ordinary as sacred, you lose it. Because the sacred doesn't appear as an object of attention, it reveals itself in the absence of grasping. It's what remains when the seeker takes a rest. When you stop looking for holiness, you realize that holiness was looking out through your own eyes. We live in an age obsessed with meaning. Yet the deepest meaning is found in meaninglessness, the sheer, miraculous fact of being. You don't need to explain existence to experience it. The flower doesn't know why it blooms, it just blooms. The bird doesn't analyze its song, it just sings. And you, dear one, don't need to justify your aliveness. You are not here to perform, you are here to participate. It's funny, you know, once you see this, everything becomes so wonderfully ordinary that it feels divine. You stop waiting for mystical moments because every moment is mystical. You stop chasing bliss because bliss is simply the taste of presence without thought. And you stop measuring your life against imaginary standards because life itself becomes the measure. When you wake up to the sacred ordinary, your priorities shift in the most unexpected way. You no longer crave grand experiences, you crave sincerity. You no longer seek control, you seek communion. You begin to see that sweeping the floor can be as profound as prayer, and listening to a friend can be as holy as meditation, because it's not what you do that's sacred, it's the awareness with which you do it. The miracle of the ordinary is that it's not trying to impress you. It's not performing. It just is. And when you meet life on those terms, without demands, without conditions, something beautiful happens. The veil of boredom lifts, and the world bursts into color. The same street you've walked 1,000 times becomes a living temple. The same face you've seen every day becomes the face of God. So stop looking for heaven in the clouds. It's right here in your coffee cup, in the eyes of the person beside you, in the breath that carries your words into the air. This is it. The sacred is not hiding, it's simply waiting for you to notice. And when you do, you'll laugh softly, perhaps with a touch of embarrassment, and say, "Ah, it was always this simple," because it is. You know, it's quite amusing how obsessed we are with the end of the world, as though it were some singular event waiting to ambush us from the future. We speak of it in hushed tones: wars, fires, floods, final judgments. But the truth is, the world has ended countless times already, and you've lived through nearly all of them. Every night, when you close your eyes and drift into sleep, your world dissolves utterly. The cities vanish, your memories fade, even the sense of I quietly slips away. And yet, come morning, you awaken and call it the same world. But it isn't. It never is. Every dawn is the first and last dawn that will ever be. The universe is completely new, wearing the same face, only out of courtesy. You see, the end of the world isn't a catastrophe, it's a rhythm. Life ends and begins with every breath. The cells in your body are dying and being born in every moment. You shed entire galaxies of skin every few weeks. And yet you say, "I am still me." But who is this me that survives so many funerals? Who is this witness that watches the worlds within and without rise and fall, endlessly? The real apocalypse is happening all the time. The sun sets, that world dies. The sun rises, another is born. A leaf falls, and the summer ends. A child laughs, and a new universe begins. Everything is always ending, and everything is always beginning. If you learn to see clearly, you realize that creation and destruction are not opposites. They are the inhale and exhale of the same cosmic breath. Alan Watts once said that we are afraid of death only because we have never properly learned to die while alive. We cling to continuity as if eternity depended on it. But it's continuity that blinds us to eternity. You are not the line stretching from birth to death. You are the space in which the line appears. You are not the story being told. You are the silence between the words. And silence, dear friend, never ends. We dread endings because we mistake ourselves for what ends. We think we are the form, not the formlessness behind it. But when you look deeply, you see that every ending is simply the form bowing out to make room for the next act. Death is not an interruption in the play. It's part of the choreography. It's how life keeps the dance fresh. If nothing ever died, nothing could ever live. Without the curtain falling, there could be no applause. So the end of the world is not the destruction of life, it's life performing its natural cycle of transformation. The stars explode so that new worlds may be born from their ashes. The tree falls so that its decay might feed the soil for new roots. Even your heartbreak, your losses, your failures, all of them are endings that clear the ground for deeper beginnings. Every death is really a renewal in disguise. And when you see that, fear gives way to reverence. You begin to bow to the endings in your life, not as tragedies, but as sacred transitions. You stop asking, "Why must things end?" and begin to whisper, "Thank you for changing." The real end of the world, you see, happens not when the planet burns, but when a single illusion dies inside you, the illusion that anything can be held. And when that illusion ends, the world ends as you've known it. But in the ashes of that ending, you find something astonishing. Peace. A stillness that does not depend on tomorrow, because it has no need of tomorrow. The end of the world is simply the rediscovery of timelessness. And then you laugh, because you realize the end of the world isn't coming, it's happening right now, in every flicker of change, in every breath that turns into the next, in every heartbeat that never repeats itself. The apocalypse is not a horror, it's the pulse of life, forever dying into itself, forever being reborn. So when you hear someone say the end is near, smile kindly and say, yes, it always is. For every moment is both an ending and a beginning. And you, my friend, are the space in which both arise and disappear. You've been dying beautifully all along, and you never noticed that it's been grace the whole time. It's funny, isn't it? How we live, surrounded by noise, the chatter of the mind, the hum of machines, the endless ticking of clocks counting down to futures that never come. We fill the air with plans and predictions, as though silence were an enemy. And yet, have you noticed that underneath all the sound, there is something that never moves, a stillness that doesn't begin when the noise ends, but has been there all along, patiently waiting to be heard. The countdowns are endless. The next crisis, the next ascension, the next big date when everything is supposed to change. Human beings love countdowns because they make time feel meaningful. They make us feel as if we're part of a grand event, as if life were heading somewhere special. But every countdown ends the same way, with the quiet realization that nothing happened except this. And this, you see, has been happening forever. We think silence means absence, no sound, no meaning, no movement. But true silence is not the absence of anything. It is the presence of everything, all at once. It is the space in which all sound arises and disappears, the invisible canvas on which life paints its colors. Without silence, there could be no music. Without the pause, no word would have weight. And without emptiness, form could not exist. The tragedy of modern life is that we are terrified of silence. We rush to fill every moment with noise, with commentary, with distraction, with the restless hum of thought. We think we are afraid of being bored. But what we are truly afraid of is meeting ourselves without the mask of motion. For in the silence, the person we thought we were begins to fade. The boundaries dissolve. The story pauses. And suddenly, there is only awareness, vast, uncontained, without an edge. Alan Watts once said that meditation is not a discipline but a delight, a way of listening to the music of existence without trying to conduct it. And that music always ends in silence. For silence is not the background of life, it is its essence. Every sound, every thought, every heartbeat is just silence expressing itself in rhythm. Even noise is a kind of silence dancing. When you sit quietly, even for a few moments, you may notice a curious thing. The world does not stop. The wind still moves. The breath still flows. The heart still beats. Life carries on quite contentedly without your commentary. The silence you enter is not a void, but a fullness beyond comprehension. It's not that nothing is happening, it's that everything is happening at once, without resistance, without need. And when you hear that silence, really hear it, the fear of endings dissolves, because you realize that silence never ends. It doesn't begin when words stop. It holds every word that ever was and ever will be. The silence before your birth and after your death is the same silence that listens now, through your ears. You are not the sound, you are the listening. You are not the thought, you are the stillness beneath it. When you stop counting down the seconds to salvation, you begin to sense that you never needed saving. The silence beyond the countdown is not waiting for an event, it is the event. It's the eternal happening of nothing in particular, and yet everything at once. It's the universe resting in its own awareness, perfectly complete. And when you rest in that too, you find a peace that no prophecy, no catastrophe, no achievement can disturb. You see, silence is the final teacher. It explains nothing, promises nothing, demands nothing, and that is precisely why it reveals everything. Because the truth, the real truth, cannot be spoken. It can only be heard in the space where words have ended. So, when all the countdowns run out, when all the clocks stop, when all the noise falls away, you will find yourself standing in a stillness so vast that there is no inside or outside, no before or after, no beginning or end. And in that silence, you will finally understand that eternity has never been waiting for you. It's been here all along, listening. And so, my friends, here we are at the end, which is to say, back where we started. After all the prophecies and the philosophies, after the awakenings and the anxieties, after the longing and the letting go, we arrive precisely here, right where we've always been. Only now, perhaps, we see it more clearly. You see, life was never waiting for you to arrive. It was always unfolding perfectly well, with or without your permission. The great cosmic dance did not begin when you entered the floor, nor will it end when you leave. You were never outside of it, only dreaming that you were. And when the dream dissolves, you realize you were never the dancer at all. You were the dance. All the searching, all the striving, all the desperate effort to be spiritual, to be awake, to be better, it was all the play of the universe pretending to forget itself, a divine hide and seek. For what is awakening if not God suddenly remembering that it was never asleep? You may recall the idea that 2028 will save us, or that some great event will set things right, but now you can smile at it, can't you? Because you know the joke. The event is always now. The world has always been ending and beginning and ending again, yet here you are, listening, breathing, being, and you realize there is nothing left to wait for. This ordinary miracle of existence is the prophecy fulfilled. The ego, clever little thing that it is, will try once more to grasp it. It will say, I understand now, I have awakened. And in that moment, you can simply laugh, because the one who claims awakening is only the old dream putting on new robes. True awakening has no owner. It doesn't belong to anyone. It happens the way dawn happens, softly, without announcement, without a single person in charge. So what's left to do? Nothing, really, except live. To wash the dishes with the same wonder as you would meditate on a mountaintop. To love without needing, to give without trying to fix, to listen without waiting for your turn to speak, to see the sacred not as something to achieve, but as something so obvious that you've tripped over it your entire life. Alan Watts used to say, the point of the dance is not to get to the end of the music. And that's it, isn't it? You've been chasing the finale while the orchestra has been playing your favorite part all along. The purpose of life is not to finish it, not to solve it, not even to understand it, but to feel it, to let it move through you as laughter, as sorrow, as stillness, as song, because when you finally stop trying to get it right, you discover it's already perfect. And perhaps at that moment, something inside you exhales. The great tension relaxes. You realize you don't have to save the world, or yourself, or the future, because there is no separate you to save, and no future waiting to be saved. There is only the eternal flowering of now endlessly creating and dissolving endlessly playing at being everything and nothing. You see, enlightenment was never the end of the road. It was simply the disappearance of the roadmaker. The traveler, the journey, the destination, all of them are movements of the same infinite stillness, playing hide and seek within itself. You were never on your way anywhere because you've always been home. So perhaps, as we close, you might just sit quietly for a moment, not to meditate, not to achieve, but simply to notice. The breath comes and goes. The heart beats of its own accord. The world continues to spin effortlessly. And somewhere, deep within or far beyond, the silence smiles. It smiles because it knows what you now know, that the search was never for truth, but for the courage to stop searching, that the world was never waiting to be saved, it was waiting to be seen, and that the seeing itself, this luminous, living awareness, is what you have always been. So, the next time you catch yourself waiting for some grand event, some promised year, some future revelation, pause and listen. Feel the hum of the present moment. This is it. This has always been it. And you, my friend, were never anything other than this.